Please be advised there are spoilers ahead related to the property being watched and or discussed.
Hello. Thank you for pressing play on this audio video. I'm coming at you with a review of episode 4 from the 10th season, Paper Moon. Why a review, you ask? Because for the first time ever, after recording over 400 reaction videos for the first time, for whatever reason, I did not properly record my reaction to this episode. I thought I had pressed record, but apparently I didn't. And thankfully, this episode wasn't an epic one, although it wasn't a terrible one as well. And this is also a heads up to you that if for whatever reason, God forbid, I technically ruin things with a reaction, this is my backup situation in which I will record a review similar to something like this one about the episode itself with as much detailed afterthoughts as possible to make up for the lack of a reaction, because that's really, in my personal opinion, the best thing you can do to keep things authentic. Okay, so if you are definitely interested in finding out my thoughts about this episode, let's get right down to it. Let's start with the opening scene, which really impressed me because of the actual song that they chose to allow me as a viewer to engage with this mysterious woman walking into a bar with striking red lips, and she picks a guy who seems to feel like he's the luckiest man in the world, only to be mauled to death at the end. And the song that they chose, I looked it up here, is Werewolves of London. And most of you should know by now that I usually don't pick up on music stuff, but this was special enough for me to go and actually look into. And apparently the name of the song is Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon. And I was very impressed with that. I thought that was a really great way to tell me, if I'm paying attention to the lyrics, as to what the baddie situation was going to be about in this episode. Next up, I really enjoyed watching briefly Sam and Dean taking somewhat of a vacation, lying on some lawn chairs with glasses on, taking in a little bit of the Vancouver sun. I thought it was a really interesting setting. Okay, let's now move on to the major reveal of what this episode was all about, and that is the return of Kate, the werewolf! Woo! Or for probably most of you, boo! Right? Okay, yeah, I was really surprised. I really was. I mean, at the beginning when we see it was a werewolf that killed the guy at the bar, I was excited at the fact that perhaps this will likely be a new werewolf character. And immediately I was like, okay, maybe Garth is going to be in this episode, but instead it was Kate. And then I thought, okay, well, the last we left off with Garth, since most of you know I love Garth, right? We found out he's a werewolf, and so I thought maybe Garth was going to join at some point, and I wasn't paying attention to the credits to see DJ Squall's name or anything. So I thought Garth was going to jump in to perhaps help with the Kate situation, considering that we're seeing her, and now there's probably going to be some kind of consequence or aftermath that's related to Sam and Dean having let her go in the first place. And they do get to that, because the next big surprise that had me a bit speechless was the reveal of her sister as a werewolf. That really took me for a loop, and at that point I was like, likely we're not going to have any Garth in this episode, so it's going to be a story revolving Kate. And that's when my mind started spinning about, what's going to happen now. Or are they going to now let go of 2 werewolves to go about living their lives and possibly hurting people? And the answer to that is a no. So that leads into the story behind Kate's decision to turn her sister. I was very relieved at that. In fact, that's the only part of the entire episode I resonated strongly with. I thought that it was realistic to show that she missed her family, considering that they made it quite clear in this episode that she had a strong connection to them, and she hated the fact that she had completely written herself out of their lives. They probably didn't even know she was dead or alive. And then when she found out her sister was sick, she took the chance of making a choice for her sister, right? To parallel things with Sam and Dean. In this case, that's how I interpreted it. She made a choice for her sister against her will and turned her literally into a monster. The way it was performed by the actress Britt Sheridan, I thought was well done, and it was believable. I actually got a little bit sentimental about it, considering I have a younger sister myself, and I couldn't help but ask, if I knew saving her life meant turning her into a supernatural creature, would I do it? And very similar to how Kate rationalized things, I definitely identified with. However, where I started to get quite annoyed and a little bit worried that this episode was going to disappoint me was when we started seeing that her sister was very much not into being a good werewolf. She is fine and happy to create her own pack and kill innocent people because she felt that all along, apparently, she was being walked all over, in her own words, by her family members and especially by Kate. From Kate's perspective, they were very close as sisters. However, her sister is claiming that her feelings weren't as mutual as Kate believed. And I think there again, paralleling Sam and Dean, Dean's perspective of Sam is not an equal match to Sam's perspective of Dean. The paralleling of that is okay in and of itself, but where things really start to kind of bug me is when at first it seemed as if they were not going to kill the sister and they were likely going to justify some reason in letting her go because it's Kate's sister. I kind of thought they were going to do this whole thing where Dean wouldn't kill Sam or Sam wouldn't kill Dean no matter what, and they would just superimpose that entire sentiment onto these sisters, despite the fact that Tasha is a killer and she's also turned two other guys into werewolves to kill people as well. Thankfully though, half of my qualms with that was put to rest when her sister used the dagger that they nicely set up from the beginning of the episode to then kill her sister in a very cliche TV dramatic way, but still satisfying as a viewer because I felt that was the right call. I was very much Team Dean in this particular episode when it came to any type of conversation. To me, I was like, listen, they really have to get this whole morality thing sorted out when it comes to monsters versus humans. Because Tasha was clearly a monster. She was not going to change. She needed to be put down. That's what hunters are there for. That's the whole premise of the hunting situation. And I got worried at one point that Sam was going to be the one to kind of talk them out of it. But thankfully, that didn't end up being the case. However, what I don't like at the end, and I think for those of you who are not Kate fans, perhaps you'll resonate strongly with me on this one, I don't like the fact that Kate got away. Again, in the same way that she did in her original episode, because for me, that just tells me that she's gonna come back at some point and then what? Meet up with Garth? Join his family? I don't know. All I know is that if they do bring her back in some future episode, in a future season, I hope they expand on the lore of the werewolf and mix in a really compelling story with Garth and his family so that it's not only entertaining, but it also gives more of a character arc for a character like Kate. Overall, though, despite some really corny dialogue, especially from the character of Tasha, and not the best acting performance in my opinion, this episode wasn't that bad. In fact, when I saw that it was Kate and that she had turned her sister, the entire episode became a lot more engaging, and I was genuinely interested in the moral dilemma at play. But not to the degree that I would give this episode anything beyond 3 Ashamojis. I think it's good, but definitely not great and far from excellent. So, there you have it. That is my review of episode 4 from the 10th season of Supernatural. Share your thoughts, of course, about this particular episode. Let me know if you were excited to see the return of Kate the werewolf. And what did you feel and what did you think when she escaped the clutches of the Winchesters right at the end, which signified the possibility that she is going to return? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I'll see you again in my official reaction to episode 5. Bye-bye! Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos.